Dirty work on a Friday afternoon. It's a Scout Friday, even with the rain out there and the weather. Still like hearing the horns. Adam Copeland, D-Pop, Tim Webb hanging out. And we're joined now by our guy, Larry Krueger. You see him and hear him on Niners Nightly, weeknights 6 to 7 on KNBR. Part of our Niners pre- and post-game coverage. And, of course, the Krug Show, which is going on all hours of the day and night. Krug joins us. What's up, Larry? How are you, bro?
What's going on, guys? Good to talk to you guys on this Friday.
Yeah, good to talk to you, too. We talked, obviously, a lot last night about the Devondre Campbell stuff, and I'll start there with you as it relates to the 49ers. And I think we were all in agreement last night, and I still feel this way based on the reaction of the team, the players, Kyle Shanahan, that this is more of an isolated incident than it is something that's permeated through the locker room or is a microcosm of something bigger. Would you agree that this is just an isolated deal?
You kind of bled out there for a second. I only heard part of it, but you said, is this an isolated?
Yeah, I said, I think our agreement, we were in agreement last night that especially after you hear from guys like Charvarius Ward and George Kittle, that this is an individual incident and not a microcosm of something bigger.
Oh, yeah. This is not like, the team's about to quit on Kyle Shanahan or he's lost the locker room. No, this is Devondre Campbell being Devondre Campbell. And, this is the danger when you go outside your
organization.
Normal organization. Yeah, I mean, without going and drafting guys. I mean, I mentioned Kelly Oubre or old-time Giants fans remember A.J. Pierzynski.
Yep.
When you go for free agents and you bring in guys from other cultures, they may share your culture, they may not. They may share your passion, they may not. I thought it was just such an interesting night where you had Dre Greenlaw who would literally do anything in his power to get on the field, and you got another guy who's like, I don't need it. I'm going to tuck tail and go head to the locker room. So, I hate to say that I saw this coming, but I saw this coming. About a month ago, I've been talking about this for the last month, that not only should they cut Campbell because he's not very good, but that also that if he was asked to take any kind of a diminished role within the defense, that he was going to do exactly what he did. He was going to be all about himself. He was going to pout. He was going to be a negative influence, and he was going to be a distraction. And I said they should move on from him and cut him. And they kept, saying how great he was looking. And then so obviously he wasn't looking great because as soon as they could replace him, they did. As soon as they replaced him, he lost his mind.
Yeah, it's funny, too, to think about that. Like, as a professional athlete who's been around for as long as he has, too. Like, grow up, Peter Pan. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to diminish role. Come on, dude. Be a pro. Go to battle with your guys. But obviously it wasn't something that was at the forefront of his mind. And Derek pointed out he was the second choice of a guy to bring in. They wanted Eric Kendricks to be here at the start of the year.
Right.
Instead, he ends up already being that second choice. So Kyle Shanahan said today in his teleconference that they're working through the semantics of how to go about this. But he said you can't do what you did and stay on the team. You can't act that way with your teammates and not go to battle and stay on the team. He was asked about whether or not he was expected to be here for Week 16, and he said, no, I don't expect him to be on the roster. Now, when they say semantics, I'm wondering what the logistics are here or what it is that they're working on. Brian Peacock of the Locked On 49er podcast, he put out something that I think as a fan, it's kind of spicy and it's a good story. He says, I don't think you should cut him right away. Make him come back and face his teammates, then fine him, then cut him. I was like, ooh, that sounds good. I kind of like that. Can we get a camera on that? Everybody wants to see that. But I can't imagine that's in any way beneficial to the team. So, or that he would ever show up to have that happen. So what are the semantics? What could they be waiting on doing?
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of how do they want to part ways with a veteran, exactly what's the machinations of doing it the right way according to the rules and the way the league has everything set up. But he's not going to play another down with the Niners. I mean, that was clear. It was hilarious today. I mean, that was clear to me, like literally as soon as Kyle Shanahan said that he walked off the field and it was his own call.
He's gone.
I knew right then he was done. People were asking today after Kyle in the presser today is like, so are you trying to say that Devondre Campbell will not be there? And he's gone. Okay,
he left.
The guy, when you quit on your team, it's over. Game over. It's I thought that was kind of humorous, but yeah, I mean, it's my only criticism here would be, the Niners went too far the last couple of years trying to protect their off-season free agent investments when the rest of us knew that it was futile. Last year, it was Isaiah Oliver. Oliver stunk. But you know what? They didn't get him off the field and replace him with Ambry Thomas until after the bye week. So, I mean, what was that, week 10?
Yep.
I mean, that was way too long. They waited way too long with Oliver last year. They waited way too long with Campbell this year. And it's just unfortunate, but, it kind of goes to show that they really need to rebuild that spot, whether Greenlaw's coming back or not. And God, I hope he is, but they have to rebuild that linebacking core.
Yeah, we know
players.
Yeah, we know that Devondre Campbell's not going to be on this football team. But Larry, what do you think about the future of Debo Samuel with this football team? Because all week it's been the story of him, tweeting and saying that he's not involved enough. And then last night he gets 7 targets, but only catches 3 balls. It's his 5th consecutive game with getting 22 yards or fewer. And there's been always rumors about them trading him. I know there's maybe they need him next year because Brandon Ayuk is not going to be healthy. But what do you think about the 3 remaining games for Debo Samuel's future with this football team?
I don't know what to make of it, Derek, because I thought the game plan last night was awful. I mean, George Kittle's hot. JJ's hot. Garendo's been playing well. And you come out in that game to feature Deebo and try to get him going. And it just seemed like, why? Why would you do that? This guy is averaged 2 yards a carry as a running back. He doesn't separate against man coverage. He does not a great route runner. He's got inconsistent hands. He's lost a step. But Kyle loves him. Kyle wanted to give him a shot. And I just couldn't believe that with their season on the line, they just said, Deebo, 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 and he just wasn't there. As far as his future, I mean, it's a dictatorship. It's not a democracy. If it was a democracy, they'd vote him off and they'd move on. But it's a dictatorship. Kyle's the guy. Kyle loves him. And we'll see. I can't imagine that he's worth a whole lot in a trade. What would anybody give you for a guy with a bloated contract who's lost his speed?
Talking to Larry Krueger here, nice enough to join us. Niners Nightly tonight from 6 to 7. What would you make of Brock's play, not just yesterday, but kind of on the season? Like, does it feel, you were mentioning this last night, it seems like he's been more aggressive, but it also seems like he's made some decisions this year that didn't totally align with the smart play and decision-making we saw last year. And I don't know that has anything to do with putting more on his shoulders or trying to get a team going when things aren't going, but he doesn't seem to be playing within the constraints of the abilities he had last year. And I think at some points this year, it's led to mistakes. What's your evaluation of him to this point?
Well, first of all, I mean, he's the best you got.
Yep.
How did we get here? You got here because you took the wrong quarterback at the top of the draft, and you didn't have a quarterback, and you probably were going to be gone if you didn't discover this guy. So that's how they got there. As far as this year, it's really interesting. I think the equation around Brock is bogged down a little bit. The offensive line in front of him hasn't done a great job. The weapons have regressed significantly. The defense and the special teams have regressed significantly. But I just think his overall dial as far as risk reward, which was set perfectly at the beginning of his career, where he protected the football, still took chances down the field, and was very efficient. We've seen some of that efficiency backslide. Last night was a classic, horrible decision by Brock Purdy, and he's not prone to making them. But you're in field goal range. You're within a field goal. You have to get at least the field goal. You can't have a turnover where you just float the ball in the middle of the field. I mean, he lost that game for them. And, I'll say this. He's accountable. He went to the podium and he said, hey, it was on me. But guess what? He was right. It was on him. You had to have that field goal. It was an inexcusable turnover. He's the best they got, but he may not be their franchise quarterback forever. So I think what you got to do is you got to keep him. You got to figure out what you're going to pay him, and then you got to keep drafting quarterbacks behind him. Don't go with Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs and veterans. Get into the draft and start taking your chances, whether it's whoever, Tyler Van Dyke or, I don't know who it's going to be, but you're going to have to go into the draft and keep looking for quarterbacks and then hope that you hit on one. I mean, you were sharp enough to hit on Brock. Maybe you're sharp enough, the same guys, to hit on another quarterback, and that will either replace Brock or accelerate your rebuild by being able to be traded for other assets. So I think that's the way to go. I think you got to stay with Brock, but keep looking for his replacement.
Well, you said you got to figure out what you got to pay him, and we know that the quarterback market is what it is. So are there moments this season, Larry, where you're like, Brock is good, but he's definitely now worth $60 million a year to be the next quarterback in line after Dak Prescott?
I mean, I don't think I don't think anybody really thinks he's worth $60 million. Bill Barnwell has an article out saying that he's going to ask for 65.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to pay him that.
You got to ask, though.
To me, well, what's that?
You got to ask. If you're Brock, you're like, I'll ask for it. See what happens.
Yeah,
I'll start high.
Exactly. It's a good agent. But I Hurts is making 55.
Yeah.
Tua's making 53. Is he Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, hell to the no. Yeah. But you know what? He is on that second tier. And I think that's where Hurts is, and I think that's where Tua is, and I think that's where Brock is. Now, does that mean you pay him $50 million? I've heard people suggest give him a Baker contract, which was, 3 years, $100 million?
That ain't happening.
Yeah, in an ideal world. But I don't know. I guess I couldn't really speak to what exactly has happened to his market based on the regression that we've seen this year. Is it viewed as his regression, team regression? But I still think I would want to sign him. I just don't know if I want to sign him at the top of the market. In fact, I know I don't want to sign him at the top of the market.
Well, it's probably an unfair question, and the answer is probably Brock, just based on what the market has been, the level of success, and how much more we've seen of him in recent years. But when you look at a guy like Sam Darnold, what's his market relative to a guy like Brock?
Well, and is he going to be available? I mean, there's J.J. McCarthy there. A lot of talk that, and some people last night, were throwing that out. Oh, would you rather have Brock at $50 million or Sam Darnold at $25 million? Well, that's a tough question now, isn't it? I'd rather have Brock than Sam Darnold.
Yep.
But if you throw in a $50 million, tag on top, or 25 extra million, I gotta really think long and hard about that. And then am I going to get Sam Darnold? Am I going to get him at 25 million? Is there a trade market for Brock? Who's out there? What are they offering? What would that do to their chemistry? I mean, these are all big, major, foundational type decisions that Kyle and John and the organization has to make. But I think at this point, after a season like that, everything needs to be on the table, and nobody's ego or attitude or whatever can be too big where they can't take accountability. Football is about accountability. Everybody needs to be accountable to one another. That's why Campbell's going to play on a different team or never again. And that's also why everybody needs to be evaluated, from Shanahan to Lynch to Purdy and all the way down.
When you look, Larry, before we let you go, when you look at this team and how this season has gone now at 6-8, 3 games to play, and they got to play out the string here, what's the one thing you hang on as to why the season didn't go as expected or as they hoped?
That's a great question, Copes. I mean, I don't know if it's one thing, right? Yeah. But I would say the things that stand out the most are they failed in building the D-line with a lot of missed picks. They missed on Solly. They missed on Kinlaw. And then they prioritized the D-line over the O-line, so they kept going back to the well of more D-linemen. So they've overdrafted their D-line without the results, and then the direct impact of overdrafting your D-line without the results is you underdrafted and undersupported your O-line. So now you look up and you're like, we drafted guys on D-line. They didn't work out. Our D-line's still a little thin. Our O-line needs to be rebuilt. But to me, if you say what's the biggest backslide, it's the skill position guys that a year ago were the cutting edge, best in football. They're not anymore. They've all backslid except for Kittle. And then the linebackers, they had the best linebackers 3 years ago with Azeez and Greenlaw and Fred. And now you've got Fred, and now Greenlaw's back, but Azeez has moved on, and the guys that you try to replace him with were replacement level guys. So to me, they were great at linebacker. They had great skill position guys. In addition to building up the line of scrimmage, they got to find a way to get that back.
Yeah, the D-line, the depth of the D-line is certainly something that was the strength of the team in the last couple of years. It hasn't been. Maybe you need to go back to being a defensive team with a great offense relative to being an offensive-minded team in general. Larry Krueger, the voice you hear. Niners Nightly coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. He'll be with you 6 to 7. And, of course, on the Krug Show. Just real quick, we were just talking about it before we got you on. Totally off base here, off topic. Is there a more bulletproof actor than Michael Keaton? Listen, people just love Mike Keaton, dude. Doesn't matter what he does, where he is. He can play a superhero. He can be a multiplicity. He can play, what were you calling, Mr. Mom or whatever that was.
He was the maniac, and that was just on this week.
Was it?
He was the maniac in Pack Heights. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, Pack Heights, yeah.
Heights, dude, no, I haven't seen that.
movie. Great movie.
Great actor, though, right? Am I right? Like, no, everybody likes Mike Keaton.
Oh, he's very good. Yeah, definitely a good actor.
Somebody else checked in and said, you know who else is Chris Elliott underrated? I was like, that's not what we were talking about.
I love Chris Elliott.
So do I.
The Michael Keaton character in Pacific Heights was so scary.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just so diabolical. He was scary. Michael Keaton plays a freak.
Yeah,
he plays a crazy
he's
guy
a freak
really,
in that
really
movie.
well.
I knew he was the guy I got to ask. Krug on Keaton. I don't know if I'm going to get a good Keaton take from Marcus Thompson when we talk to him next. But,
Marcus knows Batman.
He'd be like, yeah, he was Batman. That'd be it. Yeah, Batman forever. Remember he took down the Penguin. He was half Penguin. Danny DeVito living in the sewers. All right, Krug, Niners Nightly tonight, 6 to 7. We'll talk to you later, bro.
Great listening to you guys. Derek, you're cracking me up, bro. You're underrated funny right there.
Thank you, Krug.
Always
Thank you.
enjoy listening to you guys.
Like
Thanks for having me on, guys. Thanks for and check out tonight at 6. A lot of phone calls tonight, fellas. A lot of phone calls. We're going to let the fans react.
Good deal. Talk to you later, Krug. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Krug.